I don't know what's going on. Anything going on in your life? Anybody been busy having some adventure, Sax? Seems like you were busy last week. Anything to report from your side of the world?
Well, should we take you guys behind the scenes of a presidential fundraiser? I admit I've never done one before, so it was a new experience for me. When you host a president, it's just a whole different level of preparation. The Secret Service was out like a week before. The president has an amazing advance team. They work out every detail. They make a map of your house. They really have to think through everything. The police shut down the street. It's really a very involved process.
By the way, I went to dinner in the city that night. And, I was right by your house. So I drove up the street and they had everything blocked off on like 3 blocks on both streets, like on both sides of your house. But there were all these protesters like all throughout San Francisco, like pro-Trump people had driven in from all over NorCal must have been, because these were not San Francisco natives. Supporters. And they came in with these like cars and the streets were blocked. It was a total zoo in the city for hours before and after your event. I actually stayed in the city that night and I heard the people going nuts for hours afterwards. But it definitely took over the city.
Yeah, so what was really interesting is that all week the San Francisco publications had been trying to gin up protesters by writing about that, the president's coming to town and the protesters are going to show up. And in fact, there was almost no anti-Trump protesters. And then a huge number of pro-Trump demonstrators came out and they were waving flags and cheering along his motorcade as he was coming to the house. So the whole protest thing backfired.
Why do you think anti-Trump protesters did not show up? What happened?
I think there's just a big enthusiasm gap. I mean, I think that the pro-Trump people are very enthusiastic and the, let's call pro-Biden or anti-Trump people are just not very motivated right now.
So it's exhausting to be against Trump for 8 years. Like, this has been exhausting. I think they've exhausted folks.
So
it's
anyway,
a losing
Owen
proposition,
McCabe, who's the founder of Intercom, he was there. And I think this was actually a good summary because he said that he spoke with a bunch of people and none of them identify as Republican, all voted or donated Democrat in the past. That's true for me too. Now they're backing this guy for his policies on war, immigration, crypto, and more. This election's referendum on those issues. So Owen, came out, appreciate his support. But it's true, the campaign told us that they had more first-time donors at this event than they've seen before. And that's because a lot of these people hadn't supported Republicans or hadn't supported Trump, and they came out. So we have a few photos and videos here to take you behind the scenes.
Here we go.
I think that might be interesting for people. So the first thing to say is that President Trump is extremely charming. He connects with people in like 5 seconds. I mean, he meets you and finds something interesting or funny to say, and he's hilarious. I mean, when he spoke in the living room and he talked extemporaneously for an hour, he's speaking off the cuff. Every speech he gives is different. This is him coming into the living room. He had made just a few notes about topics he wanted to talk about on a piece of paper, but that was it. It was all completely extemporaneous. No teleprompter, obviously. And he's hilarious. I mean, people don't realize how entertaining he is.
What were some of the greatest hits? What did he hit on? Did he hit on low pressure from showers? Because I know he's got like some things he hits on that are relatable. Was it all like specific crypto topics, tech topics, or did he go off?
He did talk crypto, and it was really interesting. At one point in his speech, he called on the Winklevoss brothers who were there. And I'm only mentioning this because it was already reported that they were there, so I don't want to speak out of school. But he said to them, he says, I know you guys created Facebook. He was giving them credit for creating Facebook. And
I know you actually created it.
Yeah, but he says, but it's okay. I mean, you guys look like models. You were dealt a lot of cards. A lot of cards.
I mean, they're very good looking. Huge IQ. And I mean, look at him. Great hair.
Yeah. And so I thought, okay, wow, like he must know the Winklevoss brothers. He must have met them previously. And I found out this is the first time that he had ever met them. So think about the awareness that he has to know that they're in the audience, to see them, point them out, and then have this kind of hilarious routine with them. So he's someone who's very sharp, very on the ball, very funny. And then his energy level is incredible. So he had started his day at Mar-a-Lago at 3:30 a.m. Pacific time, 6:30 a.m. his time. Then he flew to Arizona, did a Trump rally in Arizona. Then he flew to San Francisco for our event. He spent 4 hours at our event. He could have left an hour earlier if he wanted to. Then he flew to LA for more events the next day there. So think about his day, and his energy level was just amazing the whole time.
Chamath, your thoughts before this goes on for an hour?
Yeah, I'll give you 2 observations. The first is that I think that there is a huge gap between how the media tries to portray Donald Trump and what he's like when you meet him in person. And that gap is really wide. And so I would say specifically to Democrats and independents, you really do need to sit in the room and feel what it's like. David is right. He is charismatic. He's intellectually sharp, and he's funny. And when you put that together, he can engage an audience for a long time and be totally extemporaneous. The other thing I would say that he is very polite, and he's kind in a way that was disarming and was not what I expected. And so I felt that I had misjudged him many years in the past. And so I was very glad that I had an opportunity to sit beside him and to actually interact with him one-on-one. It was really, really engaging. And so that's more about the style. And then about the substance, what I would say is it was not just a pro-America agenda, but it's very clear that he was pro-innovation. So he was really supportive of AI in the details that he talked about. He was very supportive of crypto in those details. And he's very much low regulation, low taxation. And so when you put that together, it does stand very much in contrast with what the alternative is. And so I think that both of those things are a reason why, even if you aren't willing to vote for him, I would encourage everybody to experience what it's like to hear him.
Freeberg, your thoughts on all this?
I didn't go to this. I didn't go to the event. I don't know.
No, I know. Just big picture.
I'm
Our
wondering why
bestie's
Chamath
hosting this.
I want to know why Chamath didn't wear a tie. Everyone else is wearing a tie. You didn't want the tie?
Chamath doesn't need a tie. He's a baller.
All right.
Do you want to say what Trump said to you when he met Natalie?
So it's us talking, and he says, "You guys are a really beautiful couple."
Uh-oh.
And I said, "Well, thank you." And then he turns to me and he goes, "Well, you must be really rich." He says this thing. And I started laughing out loud. Nat thought he was hilarious. So
because of the disparity in the looks between you and Nat is what he was sort of implying.
You guys sat next to him at dinner.
Yeah.
And was that like an hour just private conversation between the three of you?
This is the other thing that he does. He actually sits there and he says, folks, I'm happy to continue to talk about whatever you want me to. You feel free to ask me questions, or feel free to just go around the room and just tell me what you think. And what would happen is people would say different things, and then he would start asking questions of other people, and the thing becomes almost like this roundtable discussion of topics we talked about Iran, we talked about foreign policy, we talked about
deficit and debt.
Like the
crypto regulation, everything.
What did he say about deficit? What did he say about deficit and debt?
Well, he's very much he's very much on your side of we have to really figure out how to get spending in order and get the deficit under control.
Well, congrats on sounds like a successful event for you guys.
It sounds like you guys are in the halls of power now, and Trump has flipped his positions on EVs, abortion, and taking away a woman's right to choose. He's flipped his position on TikTok and flipped his position on crypto. I give him a ton of credit. 4 flips in a month, and he just sweeps all those votes. It's pretty smart. And for the Democrats who are listening,
he's also pro-AI.
You're losers, and you're not listening to people. So you're going to lose the election, and Biden's going to get demolished. Nobody wants to vote for somebody who they think is in cognitive decline.
Jake, you think Biden's getting demolished, right? That's your thought?
I mean, did you see the video that came out this week where he was at some event and it looked like a Mitch McConnell moment, right? Where he was kind of frozen.
He was like
and
stuck.
So I don't want to make it like elder abuse. And I know
it's not elder abuse to be honest about what you're observing, especially when it comes to
I'm just saying
the most
harping
powerful
on
role in America.
Yeah, he's got to bow out.
538 just put out their election forecast showing 51% chance of Biden winning, 48% chance of Trump winning as of 2 minutes ago.
Yeah, who knows? I think it's all going to be determined by the debates.
There's still a race.
Sachs, you were going to say?
Well, I just think, what other job in America could Biden even be qualified for? Like, what would you hire him to do? Is there any mental job you would hire him to do? Is there any physical job you would hire him to do?
No.
Would you hire him to be your babysitter? I mean, I don't think there's any job in America that anybody would hire him to do, except for maybe president. It's kind of crazy.
And this is where like the Democratic Party is in shambles.
We should have the highest standards for the mental acuity, sharpness, and energy level of our president. It's the most demanding job in the world. We need a
cognitive test, but the Democrats need to just look deeply in the mirror and say, hey, you're fielding a candidate that nobody's going to vote for. That's the problem here. And there's not enough anti-Trump sentiment. And Trump's a genius at flipping his position to get huge swaths of voters. And so you're going to get demolished if you don't hot swap him. I guarantee you hot swap is coming. I predicted the Trump PV flip, and I predict it now.
I think you're right about maybe some of the issues where folks will get much more precise on these issues. But I actually think what's happening is that this is really going to be about Trump versus Kamala Harris. I don't think Biden is going to step down at all, but I do think there's a non-trivial chance that Biden wins. And if he does, I don't think he's going to make it 4 years. And so then the real question is, do folks want Kamala? And have they had a chance to really figure out whether they want to vote for her or not? I think that's really where it's going to come down to. It's really Trump versus Kamala Harris.
And if you frame it as that, Chamath, then it's even a bigger trouncing, right? Like if you put Kamala against Trump, then what would it would be an even bigger shellacking, yeah? In your mind?
I just think that without saying anything bad about Kamala, because I don't know much about her, is really what I would say is I don't know much about her. And so you can't have somebody who gets into that role accidentally. I think we have to give both President Trump and President Biden a lot of credit, which is they stood in the eye of the hurricane and withstood all the pressure and won. And he who wins that way deserves to be the president of the United States. She hasn't withstood that. And so I think that it's pretty unfair for a lot of voters if there is a bait and switch. And so I think that you have to look at both of these two candidates and assign a reasonable probability that both of them make it to the finish line. And from at least what I saw up close, I think it's a much higher probability that Donald Trump does than President Biden does.
And listen, Biden hasn't made it to the finish line of his first term. It's obvious to everybody he's in cognitive decline. You put up a candidate who's in cognitive decline, you're going to lose. Even against, Trump, who people really don't like. These are the two most unpopular candidates of our lifetime.
I'm not sure about that. I don't think it's true that people don't like Trump. I think that
he's got a core, but Republicans, Republicans, including yourself, were looking for a different candidate just months ago. You said Trump was not your preferred candidate, and you were all in on DeSantis. So let's not pretend like he was your preferred candidate. He's the remaining candidate. So
I think it's wrong to say that there's not enthusiasm and love for Trump. We saw it on the streets. We saw it in that room.
There's some, yeah.
Do you see Logan Paul meeting with Trump 4 years ago? He was for Biden. Now he's for Trump. Have you ever seen Trump walk into a UFC event? They go nuts for him. I'm just saying there's a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of love out there for Trump, a lot of excitement. I don't see any of that for Biden. There are people who don't like Trump, and that drives some support for Biden. But if you look at enthusiasm and excitement, it's all on the Trump side.
In this, we are in total agreement. Yes. There is no enthusiasm to put somebody in cognitive decline in the White House. All right, listen, we got to get to the docket. We could talk for hours about Biden, Trump, and we will. It's going to be a continuing topic.